is. But like regular Yoda, like, is he just like, "What's up, bitches"? Like, I don't know. It was the first
Just
quote
do
that came
it.
to mind. Like a Nike commercial.
Don't try, just do it. Hello, and welcome to Star Gaze, where we're not only force sensitive, we're fear sensitive.
Yeah.
Annie.
For a second, I thought you were gonna say, "Well, we're not just fear sensitive; we're also force sensitive." And I was like, "No."
You know how many times I've done that in rehearsing this line? This
Rehearsing.
one line I have.
Just
You know,
sitting in front of
it's
your
the little
mirror.
things.
Yeah. Well, we're not just fear sensitive. Damn it.
Son of a.
Just hitting your mirror. Come on, sir. Come on.
One line.
Anywho's. Not much has changed. We literally just recorded the last episode moments ago. So we should be able to dive right into things. Because in the last, I don't know, couple minutes, not a lot of life has changed. So nothing to
We almost
report.
burnt my house down, but
That is a big issue. Was there a fire? We didn't determine
no,
that.
someone blew out a candle, and I guess that was a really sensitive smoke
What?
alarm. Yeah, which is weird because we burn incense and stuff all the time, but just having a bad day.
Like the house is always on fire. It's never been a
I
problem.
know. It's like the norm. All of a sudden they care. Yeah.
One little candle and your house is screaming. It's weird. But anyways, as you could probably, if you're viewing us on YouTube, you can look at our background and probably guess what we're talking about. And if you're not on YouTube, but you listened to our last episode, then you already know what we're talking about. But we're talking about Tales of the Jedi. And I'm really excited to be doing that and very excited to be this close to this handsome fellow's face right here. Just, hey, Dukes. Dukes. Sorry, Count Dukes. Anywho's, I loved this show, and I really hope that they do more of it because it's incredible. And even the episode lengths, they didn't feel too short, they didn't feel too long. And
Right.
I really liked that. We got right into some good stuff. The only critique I had is that I needed more than 6. And I'm curious to see if they renew it and what that looks like and how we go from there. But I loved this.
Me too. I would love for it to be like a regular seasonal thing. Just binged it all.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it like 3 times since it came out. It's like so good.
Yeah, I've been putting it on just like in the background because I know it's super short. They'll be done really quick and it's a good time. So I enjoy it. We have, so this will be our full like review of Tales of the Jedi, and we've already said we loved it, so there's that. But
All right.
yeah, so not a big climax to wait for. But they're very short episodes. It's not a lot to super cover, but we get 6 little short episodes, and there's things that I love, a couple things that I'm not quite as excited about. But overall, I think this was great.
Mm-hmm. What were some of your favorite parts?
My all of the Dooku stuff is probably my favorite. The other day, I just watched
Definitely.
only his episodes, and which is wild because Ahsoka's like my favorite character. And I really enjoyed the episodes she gets here. But because there were only six, I was like, I kind of wish we had spent either more time with Dooku or with somebody else.
Yeah, she
Um,
does get a lot of time in Clone Wars where, and like
mhm.
it's like the things that they embellished on a little bit weren't necessarily things that we were really wondering about.
Right. Like her episode with the clones, waste of an episode, in my opinion.
Hmm.
We didn't
I'd
need
agree
it.
with that.
Yeah, we didn't need it. I really loved her episode regarding the Inquisitor, which is I think it was titled Resolve.
Hmm.
And as someone who's read the Ahsoka novel, I really appreciated it. They did change like a lot of the names and stuff, which is one of my pet peeves. But I think especially now that they keep pumping out all of these books and all of this stuff, and they're letting so many people write stuff that when the people in control of like real Star Wars gets a hold of it, they're going to make tweaks and changes, and I just need to accept that. But the broad strokes are all the same, and they were all there in this episode, and I really liked that. Um, so I was like, I wish I would rather spend more time on that, um,
Right.
because that's the one part of her we haven't really seen is that gap between Clone Wars and Rebels. So I was really excited to get this one piece of it. I also didn't necessarily need her as a baby.
You
I
didn't like Baby Ahsoka?
she's cute. I don't know that it told me anything really new about her.
Yeah.
And we already knew that, she went to the temple at a normal Jedi age, right? Like she was taken as a baby for the most part, like a little toddler, little infant.
I think it would have been cooler if they had shown Master Plo Koon coming to get her.
Yeah.
Like
Like
that would have been a
expand
more
on that.
interesting story to
Yeah.
see that whole dynamic than
Yeah.
her as a 1 year old.
But they were like, what if she and her mom just reenact the first 30 minutes of Bambi? I just didn't need it. Cool. Like the tiger was cool, but I mean, the whole time I was like, okay, she's gonna get taken by this tiger, and then she's gonna befriend this tiger and ride it back into town. Like I already, and I told Bob, like, I told my husband that as we were watching it, I was like, she's gonna ride this tiger back into town. Like I don't know why we're,
I don't know why we're here.
and I'm as someone who
Well, it's like we know
knows,
she doesn't die.
yeah,
So,
I'm like, she's gonna grow up and become Rosario Dawson.
right.
So I'm not that worried about it. I wasn't like, oh my god, it's gonna eat her. I was like, why is she hanging out with the saber-toothed tiger? Like where we what was all for Grandma Soka, whatever the hell her name was, to be like Ahsoka Jedi. Yeah, we knew that. Like this wasn't
Thanks.
shocking information. Um, I don't know. Visually, it was great. I loved seeing like her world. The forest was really like cool to watch, and the art of it was really great. But I was like, I just wish we had spent more time doing. If we're gonna spend more time with Ahsoka, like I want to spend more time with her story. And it was like Tales of the Jedi, but also this is a tale about someone not a Jedi yet. Cool. You know, Dooku's felt very fleshed out, and even those were like they were all beats of his story that I already knew, but it was cool to watch them play out, and
Right.
they were done in really awesome, meaningful ways, and every episode was very intentional at the piece of the story they told of his, and I just didn't quite get that from Ahsoka's episodes. Well, as fun as they were.
Yeah. I love the episode with Master Yaddle.
Mm-hmm.
It was super
Who's
cool.
Bryce Dallas Howard, by the way, which is wild.
Oh.
Yeah. Does not sound like her,
Mm-mm.
but so good for her. And I love her as yet. And I love her in Star Wars. She directed several episodes in The Mandalorian, and she
That's
directed
right.
the Mandalorian episode of Book of Boba Fett, which is great. So she really gets Star Wars, and she's kind of like a Filoni student, which is great. And her dad is Ron Howard, who's really close with George and Steven Spielberg and all of these other people. And she grew up kind of around Lucasfilm and ILM. And so she really gets it, and I appreciate that about her. And she made a great Yaddle. When I first,
Hmm.
the first headline I read was like, Bryce Dallas Howard's going to be Yaddle. I was like, what?
Which
But
makes
she
more sense
killed
when you
it.
realize that Yoda is the only one of his species that talks like that.
Yeah. Because he's got some issues to work out. No. Um, I guess the way they're justifying it is because of something Frank Oz used to walk around and say when he had developed Yoda kind of as a character in his mind. And years ago, when people asked Frank Oz like if Yoda just talks that way because that's how his people talk, he said in his mind that Yoda had developed that way of talking, and that's not how he was born talking.
Oh,
And he's
interesting.
yeah, and he had made his own story in his head about Yoda having his own master that talked that way, and he picked up talking that way because of his master and continues only talking that way is just to honor his master and everything he taught him hundreds of years
Oh, I
prior.
didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, which is cool. It was not canon. So most people hadn't talked about that, but when Dave Filoni was developing Tales of the Jedi and he wanted to bring in Yaddle, he had come across, I guess, that interview or that quote or whatever it was, and it was like he really respected that. So he kind of used that in mind when developing how Yaddle was going to talk, and I have a feeling we're going to maybe get some Yoda stuff eventually. So that would be kind of cool.
Oh, that'll be really cool.
Yeah, I'm like, where's that story? Where's that episode? I want to see regular talking Yoda and what that looked
I want to
like.
see Yoda just like snap out of it when he like loses his patience and goes to talking normal and then goes back to regular Yoda.
Love that. And I'm like, what does he say when he talks normally? Because when he talks backwards, it's all wise gibberish riddles. But like regular Yoda, like, is he just like, what's up, bitches? Like, I don't know. It was the first
Just
quote that
do
came
it.
to mind. Yeah. Like a Nike commercial. Putting on his sneakers. Just do it. Um,
Don't try, just do it.
I'm dead. You sent me face first into a lightsaber. That was so good.
And you live to
Incredible.
tell the tale.
I did. Dukes would never hurt me. It's fine. He's a very rebels looking lightsaber right here. Actually,
Hmm.
more
I like that
weatherman poses.
it really shows like the evolution of how Dooku came to have his beliefs about the Jedi Council, about the
Mm-hmm.
Republic, which I think you get from like other media, but it's so cool to see it like played out in front of you and just mesh so well with the existing media.
Yeah, and we don't the prequels, especially like he's in Attack of the Clones not that long. He gets
Hmm.
very little screen time. Revenge of the Sith, even less. um, for the most part in the prequels, he's just like, hey, he's this evil dude. Um, and that's really all we get. And we get little nuggets of like how he's connected to these people, but they never really flesh that out in a meaningful way where you care about it.
Right. Because even in the Clone Wars cartoon, he's really just the main, like one of the main villains. It doesn't really go too much into
Yeah.
his personal backstory, anything like that.
There's only a couple times where they really dive in that he was really close with Yoda because they're master and student,
Hmm.
and that he obviously was master and student with Qui-Gon, and they were also very close. And he obviously has other relationship with some of these Jedi, and they never go into that. for the most part. Um, so it was really cool to see here and to see that he really cared about Qui-Gon. In fact, it's what pushed him over the edge.
Hmm.
Um, and that he really did kind of what was best for the galaxy, and that really the only reason he's gone is because again the Jedi had lost their way. If they had been doing what they should be doing, Dooku wouldn't have left.
Right. And the episode with him and Mace like paints that so clearly because Mace Windu is just very headstrong by the book and isn't really paying
Yes.
attention to anything going on around him, which is really frustrating.
Yeah. And a lot of, and I'm guessing it's why these two particular characters were chosen for the season. But him and Ahsoka have actually very similar feelings and interactions with the Jedi,
Hmm.
and their stories are very similar, and both willingly leave the Order,
Yes.
but then make very different choices on how to protect the galaxy in their own way afterward. um, which is good because they're kind of foils for each other, even though they really don't ever interact. So I appreciate that. Because the Jedi suck. They really screwed over these people who just really want what's best. Dooku has some issues to work out. He doesn't always make the greatest of choices himself, but it's also deeply rooted in his frustration with the Jedi. So
Right.
I really respect Dooku here. And I love that he's modeled after a young Christopher Lee in his character model. So he's got like this old timey black and white movie kind of look to him.
Hmm.
Looks exactly like Christopher Lee. And I like the way they did his voice where he kind of evolves into the Dooku that we know voice wise. I really appreciated that. Um, and I think my favorite part is the little bit of him we see interacting with Qui-Gon, both young Qui-Gon and Phantom Menace Qui-Gon, which is crazy.
And then they talk about like Obi-Wan for a hot minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And we knew he was the one who obviously wiped out Camino from the archives. Like that's not, like you watch Attack of the Clones, and then once you meet Dooku, you're like, oh, it's this guy. Um, it's not a big deal. They talk more about it in the Clone Wars, but it was cool to see it and cool to watch him wandering around the temple because he's not a Jedi by that point.
Hmm.
It's told in this show in a way that's it doesn't really make it too complicated for people. They don't bother really explaining all of it. So if you don't know the backstory, it just kind of seems like he's probably still part of the Order. He's wandering around the temple. But if you know the story, then there's like this extra layer of it making sense, which is kind of cool. Um, his book goes into him leaving the Order, but they really respected him. He left willingly, he left respectfully. He wanted to return to his world and be a more political figure because he didn't agree with how the Jedi were handling things. By all accounts, he really leaves the Order in the right way. And it's a way that they undeniably kind of respect. So they're like, yeah, sure, keep your lightsaber. We're not worried about you. Um, which is weird. I'm like, do they ever just like let a cop keep his gun? They're like, yeah, we're not worried about it. Like,
Right.
why don't you just keep yourself strapped, bud? Like, no problem. Um, so it keeps the saber, and they're like, yeah, sure. Wander around the temple whenever you want. We would love to see you here.
Shoot us a text when you're in town.
Yeah, which is so weird. I guess he just doesn't go to the meetings anymore. um, which, coming from a fraternity, I guess we kind of did that. Like there were people who like would leave on good terms and we're like, sure, come around the booth in the quad. Like, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, we're not gonna hunt you down for your letters, like keep them. So I guess that makes sense. But same time, you're not paying dues. So maybe like don't go to the meeting. Um um so I get that. But I think it's just wild. Like it just adds this whole layer to him because he's close with these people. He still visits all the time. He's like, "What's up, Jocasta? How's it hanging, bitch? Um, what's everybody here chit chatting about? What's the hot goss?" And she's like, "Hey, little Qui Gon encountering a Sith Lord. That's something."
What do you think about that?
Yeah. Which he's like, immediately I'm like, but you know that means, right? Like, he's like, the Sith Lords I've been working with? Oh no.
Hold on, I gotta make a phone call.
Yeah. He's like, do you know where he's at right now? uh um and I love their whole interaction. I love Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon. Like I just want him.
Hmm.
I hope they just book him for a million things right now as Qui-Gon and just do it. Um it was just great. And then to learn that he got killed by the people he's working for. Oh my god. Good stuff.
Yeah,
And
and
the
the
whole thing
interaction
with
between him
Yaddle.
and Sidious was cool.
Yes.
You know, Sidious like basically prove yourself to me right now.
Yeah, he's like, I have a job opening. I might count you in the running if you kill this frog bitch. Um,
Frog bitch.
um, which I love that they brought back Ian McDiarmid. Like, how do you explain it, this project to Liam Neeson and Ian McDiarmid and go, so it's gonna be like that one show we did, but not and shorter. Do you have time?
And we like do this over Zoom or something.
Yeah, which they probably did. They probably did it from home. Like, why not? Um, love that. I loved him. I loved their whole interaction in there. And it's weird to think that they were working together before he was even training under Sidious.
Hmm.
Like he was just like, "Hey, I like what you're about." Which I'm also wondering, like, how did they meet? Um,
Right. Like, how does that initial interaction occur? Because I mean, I would assume that when realized, oh, it's a Sith, like that would have been kind of jarring for him coming from the Jedi
yeah,
Order, even
yeah.
though he's not a conventional Jedi by those means. But
And he knew they were still out there because also in his book, he had been studying the Jedi prophecies, including the one about Anakin and all of these things. And so he always believed the Sith were still out there, which, fun fact, the Jedi had banned people from reading about them anymore. So they kept them locked away because they were so sure that it was nonsense, which is just so, I can't. Like, they're so annoying.
protectors of truth, we're gonna lock it up.
Exactly. Like, they had a whole secret room. There's a secret room that travels around to different places in the temple, which is weird. And it's full of stuff they don't
Very
want the Jedi to
Hogwarts.
know about. Yes, and it's full. It is very Hogwarts, and it's full of stuff they don't want the Jedi like looking into, and all of this stuff. They have a separate section in the Jedi archives that nobody has access to except Jocasta, and she's not letting anybody in there. And it's this whole thing. Like, they're so secretive and awful, but Dooku fully studied all of them, and he thought it was important. And there was a lot of really frustrating conversations he has with Yoda because he's really close with Yoda, and Yoda's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Uh
Everything's fine.
yeah, everything's great. But he taught Qui-Gon, which is why Qui-Gon is the Jedi he is in the Phantom Menace, which is also crazy. And I wish that they would fleshed out more in the prequels. Is the reason why Jedi? No, that's not his name. The reason why the reason why Qui-Gon is essentially the perfect Jedi is because of Dooku, which is bonkers. Um,
Well, it's
I
all about balance, right? So you have to have a
mhm,
little bit of, the good and the bad to fully understand the full picture. And that's
absolutely,
where the Jedi are so off at this point in their history because all they see is their version of good and nothing else really
yeah,
matters or exists.
yeah. It's cuckoo banana stuff, really, when you dive into it, and it makes me wonder then how that meeting comes about. I'm assuming Sidious has his eye on him, especially when he leaves the Order, and then as he's forming like a plan for a civil war, obviously Dooku, a former Jedi, now a political figure, prime pickings for something he can use. Also weird that I feel like I don't get a vibe from the Clone Wars that Maul ever met Dooku or knew about Dooku. Maul seems to
Hmm.
have a very limited scope of what the plan was going to be. But Dooku, I think it's the opposite, which is weird and crazy to think about. And then I'm like, would he still have become a Sith if Maul hadn't been killed off? What was the plan? I don't know. I have a lot of questions, and I
Yeah,
need it to be a show.
right now.
Please, right now, because I need to know. And
Well,
it's a
hopefully
way
we'll get
more.
more Tales of the Jedi that can kind of flesh some of that stuff out.
I hope so. I want him to have his own spinoff.
That would be cool.
Do it. Um,
Don't try, just do it.
yeah. But I'm assuming that him and Ahsoka were chosen because they're very similar. And they are part of the same Jedi lineage, actually. So,
Oh yeah, they are.
yeah. So you could argue that a lot of Dooku's teachings end up in Ahsoka, which is also why Ahsoka's a great Jedi. Weird. um, Seeing them side to side right here, though, if they were in the same part of the timeline, though, like at this age, I think I would ship it.
I can see it.
Yeah, it's giving me vibes. Also, she's the Gandalf of Star Wars, as they've said several times. And Christopher Lee was the other one in Lord of the Rings.
Sauron.
Yes, that one. Thank
The
you.
other one.
Yes. So anyway, he was, what was his name? Solomon.
Solomon Grundy.
Yeah.
Saruman.
Haruman. It sounds like a Digimon. Uh
Okay, you're gonna attend my class on the Lord of the
I'm
Rings
sorry.
now.
I will too. I'm
And
down for that.
now we have a show to watch through too with Rings of Power. So
That's fantastic. Um Anyways, so he's Salmon in that show, that movie. And this isn't
I hate
going
it.
this isn't going anywhere. I'm sorry. This thought derailed itself very quickly. They're similar. What's the point?
So you ship it. We get
Lots lots of connections. Um, so kiss. Uh this is a weird episode. Um,
Oh, can we talk about how arrogant Anakin is? I mean, we already know he's arrogant, but like
yeah,
it
he's a
just really
douche.
underlines it in that bit where he's training Ahsoka and thinks that the trials that
Such a
she's
douche.
getting ready to do are pointless, that he's never done.
Yeah, which and I don't and I'm also wondering like what this training session she's doing was, because they're not they're not like the Jedi trials for knighthood,
Hmm.
which he never had to take. And fun fact, neither did Obi-Wan. It's a great employee training system they have there. How did things go wrong? They appear to be like the general like training exercises, but then I'm like, where are all the other students? Because when Anakin was training, he had to do all that stuff with like other people, and he
Hmm.
was always like top of his class, which is a super annoying Anakin thing. And they knew he was the chosen one, so they're like, oh, Anakin did great. He's the chosen one. It's like this whole thing. That's why he doesn't have any friends. Nobody likes Anakin.
I checked
Um,
out.
yeah, but they all just seem to be like sitting there in a tiny room watching only Ahsoka for some reason, and I don't get why.
Like a spectator sport almost.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of Padawans and younglings. So like, what? Like, do they go to everyone's like practice games? Like, I don't understand.
Practice game.
Like, what is happening? And the thing I hate most about this episode and the entire series that fuels my rage more than anything in this show
Uh-huh.
is Obi-Wan's hair. He's on this side.
Oh yeah.
Obi-Wan's hair, which makes no canonical sense whatsoever. And a lot of
That
people are
was a
cool with it.
choice.
A lot of people are cool with it. They're like, oh, he gave it another try, I guess, for a few months. I'm like, no. Also, do you know how long it takes to grow this?
At least a year.
You're telling me between seasons 1 and 2, which is seemed to be when that took place, he grew this out. He spent all this fucking time growing this out,
Not cutting his hair.
which he cut off in the first place because people hated it. Hated it. It's in a book, but they hated it. But he was like, no, I'm going to give it another go. And then decided again to just get the identical haircut he had prior. This makes me so angry. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I hate it. I need answers.
Maybe it's a wig. Maybe he really just wanted to give it another go, but didn't grow it out, so he just wore a wig.
It's extensions.
Yeah. Him, before I recommit to this, let me see it again. And then he was like, no, I was right the first time. We'll just
Yeah.
go back to the short.
You know what? I guess. I mean, it is space. There is one episode where he becomes a completely different person because of an injection when he
Yeah.
goes
So I mean,
undercover. It's like, what?
maybe hairstyles is like the create a Sims tool, and you can just mess with
Mm-hmm.
stuff all the time. What a
I
world.
guess.
It would make drag so easy.
So what's Anakin's excuse? Doesn't he spend 7 seasons growing the mess we get in Revenge of the Sith?
Well, he probably wasn't raised around that kind of technology. He's in like a backwoods planet. Like,
Anakin's poor. He doesn't understand good hair.
and Padme didn't show him because for
No,
whatever reason.
no. He grows out his trailer park haircut because that's where he's from. Reminds him of home. What? Loving though, young Qui-Gon's hair.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
very, very Farrah Fawcett's very like feathery.
yeah, it's got some flares, and you cannot tell me that there's not a volumizing powder in it because
Mm-hmm.
serving. And he deflected like a million blaster bolts without a single flyaway. And that is hard to do, I will say.
From personal
Um,
experience.
when I do it, I look
Does
like a
not go that well.
disaster. Yeah. Um, really hard stuff.
Way more casualties.
So Quaggy, what brand do you use?
Waggy.
Yeah, I've renamed them all.
Duke.
I I have pet names for all of them.
What's Obi-Wan's?
I was gonna say Obi, but that's like no, everybody calls him Obi.
Even Jar Jar calls him Obi.
I'd
It
probably
is
call
not an
him
exclusive name.
I'd probably call him Obers.
Over.
Yeah. Hey Obers.
Waters.
I would love Madison to be in Star Wars.
Yeah. Just like chilling at a cantina all drunk.
Yeah, I'm into it.
That's the crossover we need. So, what's the gayest part of Tales of the Jedi for you?
Oh, we didn't do that for Disney.
We didn't. I just thought of that. I was like, oh, Disney's pretty gay though.
The gayest part of Tales of the Jedi. Obi-Wan's hair. I'm just kidding.
I'd say Qui-Gon's hair because some work went into it.
That, well, it is. He does have very drag hair, I guess. Oddly enough, it's like a lip
Or
sync
this
wig.
headpiece. That's or whatever. What are they? They're not tentacles. What are they?
uh, uh, um, um, I'm drawing a blank right now. I know what they're called. They're called tendrils on, um, but I think those are for the. I can't believe I'm drawing the French ones.
The Twi'leks.
Thank you. I almost called them the Rylothians. That's not technically true, but
Well,
not
yeah,
what
I
they're called.
mean,
More of a citizenship, not a race. um yeah. I can't remember what they're called for Ahsoka unless I have it backwards. Oh, I might have to
well,
Google
either
it.
way, it's fabulous. It's giving. Um,
It's giving Leku. That's what they're called.
all
I'm
right. Well,
glad.
these Leku are fabulous.
um well, listeners, I guess if we don't have any other final thoughts, we'll let Ku go. It was a long build up to that joke, and I did not love it when I reached the finish line. But um any other thoughts on Tales of the Jedi?
I hope we get more. This
I
was
hope
like
we get more
awesome.
too. I'm If we do, I believe it'll be a while. Like it's taken them a long time to get through Bad Batch. It's taken them a long time to do whatever else they're doing.
Anything else?
Yeah, they're just really backlogged. Dave Filoni is putting these together and he's just spread thin because of the live action universe they're building and now expanding on some of this stuff. So I hope we get more, but I'm not holding my breath for it to be soon, if that makes sense. Anyways, well, that's pretty much it. So I also hope we get more. I'm sure we will, and we'll be back to talk about more. I was gonna say Disney stuff. That's not our podcast. More Star Wars stuff. Um, and Andor, as we're recording, is slowly wrapping up in the next few weeks, and so we'll review season 1, and yeah, that's it.
Go from there.
Yeah, but if you would like to stick around and continue to watch all of this, or listen to all of this, you can follow us on the PG Media channel and subscribe so you don't miss out. You can also find us wherever you find your podcasts, probably, unless you for some reason can't find us on a platform. Then we're probably not there. Try another one. Anyways, in the meantime, though, maybe go watch some Star Wars and enjoy your time there. And also, may the fierce be with you.
Overs.
Obers. Did you see that new thing on the HoloNet, Obers? I'm obsessed with it.